Hey guys, this is BiXX. Welcome to Mentoring Monday. Recently, I received a phone call from a friend of mine asking me for help and how to resolve a major conflict she was having with someone. After I asked her about the details of the conflict, she sent me a few screenshots of the texting war that was going on back and forth. My friend's very smart and has a lot of common sense, so I was quite surprised she was participating in a major disagreement through text messages. I call this situation thumb wars. So today's topic is going to be called something kind of fun, thumb wars, which is negative texting and online messaging. This method of communication is absolutely terrible for arguments. I can think of a lot of bad and dangerous behaviors: driving without a seatbelt, driving while intoxicated, playing in traffic on the highway, skydiving with a cheap parachute. While these may be extreme examples, I think you get my point. Arguing through texting is also a terrible idea. Do you frequently argue with people using texting as a way to communicate? Have you ever done this in the past? Has it ever had a positive outcome? I bet the answer is no. I've made this mistake before. I've argued using text messaging. It never, and let me say it again, it never ever resolved the problem. It was a constant barrage of attacks and each side defending themselves. My current policy is that I will never engage in conflicting conversations by text messaging. About a month ago, I got sucked into a disagreement by text with a manager of a vocalist that I'm working with. I immediately text back, "I'm very sorry, but I don't discuss any conflicts or potential problems by text. I'd be very happy to set up a Zoom call in the next day or two to discuss this. I want at least 24 to 48 hours to pass so both sides can cool down a little bit and I have time to properly think through the problem." So let's talk about why texting tends to create conflicts and not resolve them. Our communication consists of more than just words. When I talk to you now, you can see my body language, my face moving, my emotions. According to studies, only 7% of our communication is actually comprised of the words that we use. Emojis don't replace nonverbal cues that are present in face-to-face communications. Even when we are texting, the nonverbal cues are still very relevant. The process of listening, which is the behavior component of communication, is essential to both avoiding and addressing conflict. We demonstrate listening physically. We might make eye contact or nod, or conversely tense up when something strikes us as upsetting. In truly reflective listening, we pick up words, feelings, and intent, as well as potentially creating rapport with which we can provide a foundation for transforming a conflict. With text or online messages, these vital parts of the communication process are absent. In real-time communication, we can be sure the other person is more or less present unless we observe otherwise in their behavior. Text messaging, in contrast, is, let me pronounce this word right, asynchronous. Hours or days can transpire between messages. Not only are you not in the same space, but your attention is divided and disrupted. When you're in face-to-face or real-time communication, you can actually clarify confusing cues, which may avoid a conflict altogether. Text messaging is meant for quick communication. Problem solving and conflict resolution require more than short, quick, written bursts. Text, as well as online messaging, can also draw out arguments or lead to mistaken assumptions, as you'll sit and wait for the other person to respond. Messaging can tend to create misunderstandings It is not an appropriate method for resolving a conflict which it has created. Besides, sometimes people hide behind the text. They text negative and insensitive comments that they would not normally say to someone in person. So how do you find a resolution to a text argument? The inability to properly communicate the details and nuances over thoughts and feelings in text messages, or to be fully present in the conflict, is likely to make it impossible to achieve a proper win-win outcome. I always talk about win-win. Win-win solutions are all the best. Instead, texting invites itself to endless rounds of one-dimensional insults and superficial explanations, which might temporarily exhaust themselves, but can easily regain momentum again when someone has some downtime, then decides to pick up their phone again. How many times have we been in that situation? So ultimately, text message fights are bound to trail off into a litany of misunderstandings. The more things, the more likely the bare content lacking text messages will be interpreted through anger, blame, and suspicion. So how do we resolve the text messaging mess that we've created? Politely ask for a phone conversation, a Zoom call, or a face-to-face meeting, preferably a face-to-face meeting if possible. Stop carrying out the argument via the text messages. It may be the best way to initially get a hold of your colleague or your family members, but do not continue the discussion by texting. Again, I like to give it 24 to 48 hours so I can collect my thoughts and let the problem simmer down. The problem with the vocalist manager that I mentioned earlier was resolved in 2 Zoom calls. I was really worried about it, but after the calls, both sides came together with proper listening to each other. We listened to each other's thoughts, feelings, and needs regarding the situation. The solution to texting arguments, thumb wars as I call it, is simple. Stop when you feel the conversation going downhill. Ask for a face-to-face meeting, Zoom call, or a phone call. I'm telling you, it really, really works. So if you feel yourself constantly getting into thumb war battles and you wonder why does this keep happening to me? Well, look in the mirror. You're the problem. And that's okay. Own it. You are now in control and you now have the tools to control a positive outcome. So good luck next time you feel yourself getting into a thumb war trap. So until next week, this is BiXX signing off. Remember, it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Cheers.